Most people believe more money makes you feel safer. The research says the opposite. At a very specific income threshold, $1,000 a month in passive income, something shifts in the human brain that has nothing to do with the number itself. And the people who cross it almost never go back, not because they got rich, because something fundamental changed about how they see time, risk, and survival. Here's what nobody tells you before you start. This is not a story about spreadsheets or side hustles. This is a story about a documented psychological transformation, one that economists, behavioral scientists, and neuroscientists have spent decades studying. And the specific mechanism behind it is darker, stranger, and more powerful than any income strategy you have ever read about. Stay with this. Let us go back to the foundation. The human nervous system was not built for financial abstraction. It was built for immediate threat detection. When you trade your time for a paycheck, your brain logs that as a survival transaction. Effort in, resources out. It is primal. It is ancient. And it means that every single Monday morning, at a neurological level, your brain is running a quiet background process that says, if I stop, I die. That process has a name in behavioral economics. Researchers call it loss-aversion asymmetry. Daniel Kahneman and Tversky first quantified this in the 1970s, demonstrating that the pain of losing a resource is consistently more powerful than the pleasure of gaining an equivalent one, a pattern replicated widely across behavioral economics research since. Kahneman was later awarded the Nobel Memorial Prize in Economic Sciences in 2002 for this body of work. Tversky, who co-developed prospect theory, passed away in 1996 and was not eligible to share the prize. Their research showed that humans are not rational actors. They are loss-avoidance machines, and this is the part nobody talks about. When your only income is active, when it requires your presence, your time, your body, loss aversion runs at full power, 24 hours a day. You cannot take a sick day without calculating the cost. You cannot sleep in without guilt. You cannot say no to a client without feeling the floor shift beneath you. This is not weakness. This is your nervous system doing exactly what it was designed to do. But it means you are permanently, chronically in a low-grade threat state. And threat states make terrible decisions. Now here is where the case breaks open. Research on financial stress and decision-making suggests that the psychological shift is less about reaching a high income level and more about establishing any reliable baseline that reduces survival-level financial anxiety. A modest monthly cushion, enough to cover a bad month, appears to be where behavioral changes begin to register, though the exact amount varies by individual circumstances and cost of living. Researchers studying financial behavior and stress have observed a recurring pattern. Once individuals establish even a modest baseline of income that does not require their direct labor, measurable changes in risk tolerance and decision-making tend to follow. This concept sits at the intersection of behavioral economics and stress physiology, though the specific threshold varies by individual and economic context. It is not enough money to live on in most developed economies. That is not the point. The point is that it is enough money to survive a single bad month. And that possibility, just the possibility, begins to deactivate the threat response. Gone, the chronic low-grade alarm. What replaces it is documented and repeatable. Risk tolerance increases. People begin making longer horizon decisions. They start saying no to income opportunities that do not align with their actual goals. They sleep differently. Research in stress physiology has consistently linked financial insecurity to elevated cortisol levels, and separate work in behavioral economics shows that perceived financial control, not just income size, influences stress markers. The implication is that the structure of income, not just its amount, may matter to the body's stress response. The money did not change. The architecture of the money changed. That detail changes everything. Because it means the goal was never the number. The goal was always the structure. Active income, no matter how large, keeps the threat response alive because it requires your continued presence. Passive income, even a modest stream, begins to dismantle it because for the first time in your financial life, the money moves when you do not. Here is the one concrete step that matters right now, not tomorrow, today. Identify a single asset you already own. A skill, a piece of content, a tool, a process. that could theoretically generate value without your active involvement. Not to monetize it immediately, just to see it. Because the research on behavioral change shows that the act of identifying a passive asset before building it already begins shifting the mental framework from scarcity to architecture. You are training your brain to see the world differently before the income arrives. Remember what I said at the start, that this is not a story about the number. Here is what it is actually about. $1,000 a month in passive income does not make you wealthy. It makes you different. It rewires the threat calculus that has been running silently in the background of every financial decision you have ever made. And once that rewiring begins, the evidence suggests it compounds, not just financially, but psychologically, behaviorally, structurally. The people who cross this threshold and then retreat almost always retreat because of one reason. Not because the income failed, because they did not trust the change happening inside them. So here is the question worth sitting with and worth leaving in the comments below. If the shift is psychological before it is financial, what is the real reason most people never start building the first passive stream at all? This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial, legal, or investment advice. Always do your own research before making any financial decisions.